friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and I'm very happy to announce the birth of the newest member of our family. This is Benjamin James, and he was born on June 21st at 6:26 p.m., a week late. That's why I haven't been making many videos here, because we've just been patiently waiting on the arrival of this little guy. And he was 9 pounds 8 ounces at birth and 21.5 inches long. So we're just couldn't be happier that he's here. I thought that while the baby was sleeping and the older children are out of the house, I would take a chance to kind of go over my birth story, if that's something that interests you guys. I had every intention of filming a little more during the labor and possibly the delivery, depending on how it went. But once labor happened, it just slipped my mind to even think about filming anything. And honestly, the room was so dark and the moments were kind of private. So I'm sort of glad we have kept that to ourselves. But I did want to share the story, and then I'll kind of fill in as I go with the little amount of video and photos that we do have from the birth. So here is Benjamin James's birth story. So I woke up on Sunday, June 21st, and I was officially a week overdue, and I had it. That day I was doing pretty good emotionally, but the day before had been a struggle. I had woke up crying to Adam, just that I was, so uncomfortable and just really ready to meet my baby, and I just wanted it to be over with. I'd been trying to be so patient through the whole last couple weeks, but I really hit a wall on that Saturday. I think because it was the day that I thought I would have delivered the baby by that point. And so I hit that wall. Adam kind of helped me through it, and I woke up on Sunday feeling much better. Physically, I was uncomfortable. I think I'd posted on Instagram that every step I took, I felt like the baby was going to fall out of me, and it really did feel that way. But I thought, okay, I can do this another couple days if I have to. I was in a good place. And then around lunchtime, right around noon or a little after, my midwife texted me that she was going to be in the area seeing other clients and wondered if she could pop over and check on me. And I thought, oh, that's great. That would save me a trip to go down and see her later on that week. And it would just be nice to make sure that everything was going well with me and the baby. So I think it was probably around a little after 1 before she showed up. And when she got there, we went over some options. She thought that, we were at a safe point to maybe try to kickstart labor. And her option, she said we could try the breast pump to see if that would, stimulate some contractions. She said she could sweep my membranes, or she had some herbs and things that are usually quite effective in stimulating labor to begin. And Adam and I talked about it, and I felt very strongly about not using the herbs. With my Crohn's disease, I sort of never know what could trigger a flare, and I've had supplements and herbs in the past that have caused me some issues, and so I just thought it was best to avoid the herbs, and so we thought, hey, it doesn't hurt to try some of the other mechanical options for maybe getting things going. So we chose to have my membranes swept. I'm not sleeping much, so membranes swept. And I've only done that 2 other times with 2 other babies. With my second child, David, I had it done right around my due date, and it didn't work. I ended up having him 6 days later. But then another time with Elizabeth, my 4th child, I was almost 2 weeks overdue, and my midwife swept my membranes, and I ended up having her a couple hours later. Like, she came so quickly that the midwife didn't even make it to my house in time. So we sort of knew that, it could go either way. Either it wasn't going to work, or if it did work, it could mean, very fast labor. So we were prepared kind of for both options. So I think it was about 1:30 when she swept my membranes, and then she left the house and was going to kind of stay around close and see some other clients in the area. And her advice was just to kind of get up and walk around and try to, get things moving along. And so that's what Adam and I did. We went out and we took walks around the pasture for about 20 minutes, and I was having contractions, but nothing nothing was getting stronger. It was still those same kind of Braxton Hicks contractions that I'd been having for weeks. And they were maybe 8 to 10 minutes apart, and I could walk through them and didn't need to, breathe through them. I was talking through them, and so we just kept walking for about 20 minutes, and I thought, well, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And we came inside, and Adam decided to take a rest, and I thought, hey, I'll just get out the breast pump and see what that does. And so I hooked up the breast pump and did that for less than probably 5 minutes, and I decided it was really uncomfortable and it was hurting me, and I just thought wasn't in the mood to do that. By that point, I decided that, hey, if this is going to kickstart labor later on, then I should probably eat something. I hadn't eaten since breakfast that morning. It was, a little after 2 o'clock. And so I went into the kitchen and made myself some food. And I was leaned over the counter, kind of eating, because I was having a little bit of lower back pain. And so being, kind of leaned over was helping. And as I was eating, I felt this really weird sensation. It was like a pop almost like the baby had hit my cervix or done something funky. I'd never experienced that sensation before. I was like, that was weird. But I was still kind of leaned over like a pig, just shoving food in my mouth. And it wasn't until I stood up completely that I felt water gush. And my first reaction was, oh my goodness, I wet myself. Look at this. What have I done? But then I went into the restroom and noticed that it was blood-tinged water. And so I thought, oh, maybe that pop was my water breaking. This is my seventh baby, and my water had never broken on its own in early labor before. Gabriel was my first child. They broke it in the hospital to speed labor along. And with all of the other children, my water would never break until, I was pushing. Usually in the first couple pushes, it would break, and then the baby would be born shortly after. So I had no idea what that sensation was like, having your water break on its own, but that was interesting. And so I sort of knew, okay, my water's broken. This is really happening today, and I guess I need to let the midwife know. Once my water broke, we, had no idea how quickly or slowly things would happen. We just sort of knew at that point that today was going to be the day that the baby was going to be born. So at this point, I wasn't having strong contractions, really. They were still that same kind of Braxton Hicks level contractions, probably 8 to 10 minutes apart. And but we knew we needed to start getting our ducks in a row. So Adam pretty much right away went up to get the older children, settled into the room and to kind of let them know what was going to be happening and to make sure that they were entertained and would kind of stay out of my way. And then I sent him to clean bathrooms because I really wanted that done. And I decided to get in the shower and get cleaned up. And it was when I got in the shower, this is a little after 2:30, that I had some really intense contractions while in the shower that made me think, oh, okay, this it really is happening. And those were the first ones where I felt like I kind of had to breathe through them a little bit. And so I got out of the shower and came downstairs, got dressed, and started kind of setting up the birth area. So I'm unpacking everything in my birth kit and trying to get it organized and get the room set up exactly how I'm going to want it, because I had decided in that moment that I was going to deliver in this room, which is our kind of family room, school room. It has the couch and it has a big open space on the floor, so I thought it would just be a nice private place. And with the drapes shut, it was nice and dark in here. And I don't know, so in the moment, this is kind of where I wanted to be, I guess. So I was unpacking all of my things, and contractions started coming on a little more strongly. If I was on my feet, they were anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes apart. And if I kind of slowed down and sat down, they would space out to 5 to 7 minutes apart, which isn't uncommon. in my posterior labors. So that was my first indicator that the baby was posterior still. I kind of gone into the labor knowing that it was a possibility. First of all, I'd already had 3 out of 6 of my babies posterior before, so it seems like my body sort of likes to birth that way. But then this baby had been switching from posterior to, anterior, whatever the normal position is called, over the last couple weeks. And so it looks like it had settled into a posterior position. And that it just makes labor patterns kind of wacky when the baby is posterior. The contractions never get like a consistent time apart for me. They sort of are all over the place. But the blessing of that is that with my posterior babies, the contractions never really get super close together to the point where they feel like they're one on top of the other. I always, even in pushing, tend to get a nice little break in between the contractions, which is nice. That's, I guess, if you're going to have to push a posterior baby out and have the added back labor, that at least there's a blessing in it that you get a little break in between those contractions. So that was my first indicator, was the same wacky labor pattern that I'd noticed with other posterior babies. But then also I was starting to feel it in my lower back. And so every time I would have a contraction, I would kind of have to lean over and breathe through it and kind of move my hips around. And I knew at that point that the baby was posterior. And so I think there was a little mental hurdle in coming to terms with that as the labor was beginning, because my posterior labors are much more painful and difficult on me. When my babies are in a proper position, they seem to just want to come right out, and it's easy, and even in some cases my body pushed the baby out itself with very little effort from me, but the posterior ones I kind of have to work for. So mentally I was gearing up for knowing that was going to happen. By about 4 o'clock, I had everything set up. So my water had broken at 2:30. By about an hour and a half later, I had my room all set up. I was steadily having contractions, working through them, breathing through them. They were manageable at that point. And I was just kind of ready. We're just waiting for things to pick up. And I had been in constant contact with my midwife through this, kind of letting her know what was going on. But I had never said, "Come now." And she was being very respectful of my space, and I think she kind of knew that I was a person that did better in labor when I was left alone and kind of given space to just kind of relax and not need to focus on anybody else's needs in the room. And so she was waiting for me to text her and say, "Come," and I was sort of not wanting to impose on her and say, "Come now," when I knew she was out seeing some other clients in the area. And so it's funny that there was this gap in time for probably about an hour where I think we were both kind of waiting on one another to I don't know, say, let's get you here and get things moving. So finally, what time was it? Maybe a little before 5 o'clock, she arrived, and she offered to set up a birth pool for me, which was wonderful. I had had water births with my 3rd and 4th children, my 2 girls, and they were great, wonderful experiences. And then for my 5th child, we moved into this house and had tried to set up a birth tub, but our water heater ran out of hot water, and the tub was only maybe that full. And I ended up having to stand up because it wasn't safe to deliver him in that tub. And so by the time I had my 6th, we just had chosen not to have a tub at all because, why go to all that work to set it up when I'm not even going to be able to use it. But this time, my midwives graciously offered to set it up for me, and they said, if you don't use it, it's fine, and if you do, great. And so that was wonderful. And so they spent some time getting that set up, just, a little before 5 o'clock. And I was just working through contractions. They were kind of taking turns setting up the pool, and then my midwife was if I was having a contraction, she would have me lean back against the wall, and she was kind of lifting my belly through the contractions to see if maybe we could reposition the baby's head and get it out of a posterior position. So we were doing that, and then once the tub got set up, she decided to get out the Rebozo wrap and had me get on all fours, and she was kind of jiggling the baby to kind of move it out of the posterior position. So we tried a bunch of those things. The tub was set up, and then I think, what time, maybe, I don't know, maybe by 5:30 or so, she and her assistant decided to leave me alone and actually go wait out in their car in the driveway. I think she sensed very wisely, sensed that when I have people in the room with me while I'm in labor, I tend to worry a lot about them, and it distracts me. Like on the day that I went into labor this time, our house was extremely hot. We don't have central air. We have one little window unit that was in a different room. And so I just was worried that they were uncomfortable. I was worried that, I don't know, I just worry about everybody else. There was even a point later when I got into the tub where I remember looking at Adam being like, I'm sorry, this is so boring. You're just sitting there watching me have contractions. It's like these thoughts that I don't know. I do better when there's no one around that I really need to worry about. And I think my midwife sensed that. And so they went and waited out in the car where they had air conditioning blowing on them, which was probably really nice. And I decided to just kind of get back into my own little zone where I could just focus on what I needed to do. By about 5:45, the midwives were gone, and I looked at Adam and thought, I think I really need to get in the water. And that's always the indicator that I'm in transition. Looking back now, I remember at that point when I asked to get in the water having the thought, this is crazy, why am I doing this again? I should be in a hospital where they could just knock me out. This is so painful. And I always know when I'm having those thoughts, the end is near. But at the time, you don't realize that. You just think this pain's going to last forever. This is going to break me. And you start having these thoughts where you can't do it. And those are always, for me, the times that I know I'm really close to the end. And so it was about 5:45 at that point, and I got in the water, and it felt good, and I relaxed a little bit. I probably had a couple contractions in the water. They were still 5 minutes apart at this point, and I remember looking at Adam and thinking, this has to be so boring for him. He's just sitting there helplessly watching me. And so I said, why don't you go upstairs with the kids for a little bit? And he was like happy, obviously, like, yes, I will go check on the kids, anything to get away from just sitting there watching his wife in pain. But then he got about halfway up the stairs, and I thought, maybe that's not a smart idea to be down here completely alone. So I asked him to send the 2 girls down. My girls are 7 and 9, and they had requested to be present at this birth. I've never had children present at the actual birth before. We've always invited them in the room shortly after, and even had children help cut the cord and do things like that. But the girls were finally at an age where I felt like they could handle watching the actual delivery. And so I thought, well, why doesn't he send the 2 girls down now, and they can come and watch some contractions, and I can explain to them what's going on. So they got down, and they're sitting by the pool with me and kind of rubbing my hand, which was really sweet. And I had a contraction, and their eyes got really big, and I remember explaining to them, what was going on with my body, what a contraction is, why it hurts. And in the middle of that, all of a sudden I felt like kind of pushy, like maybe it was getting close. And so all of a sudden I said to them, go get your father, tell him that I feel like I need to push, and tell him to go get the midwives. And so at that point it was like a little after 6, maybe 6:10, 6:12. The midwives came running in, and I'm already pushing at this point. My body, just when you get that urge, you have to do it. And so I'm pushing. And so anyways, I'm pushing, and they're trying to check heart tones, and his tones went from, between 100 to 120 with one contraction, and they dropped pretty significantly with the next one. And my midwife got worried and said that I needed to get out of the tub right away and push the baby out. In my mind, in that moment, though, I'm in the zone of pushing, where my body is telling me, don't move, just push as hard as you can and get this over with. So I actually said to her, no, I'm not going to move, I can't move. I guess at the time it wasn't registering in my mind that this is an emergency situation. You really need to listen to your midwife. I wasn't in a rational place. My body was completely calling the shots, and it was saying, don't move, just push. And it took them, probably a couple minutes to convince me to finally get out. I got out of the tub at 6:24. They said, you need to push now. And I don't know, I think he was caught up on maybe my pubic bone or something, and my midwife had to kind of reach in and help a little bit and pull him down. And then by 6:26, he was out. Took his first breath and his first cry at 6:27. But I'm telling you, I had to push with all my might with this kid, because we came to find out he was 9 pounds 8 ounces, and his head was 15 centimeters in circumference, and he was posterior. So it was quite a struggle to get him out. I'm thankful that he's here and he's okay, and everybody's okay. Despite his heart rate dropping so low, he had great APGAR scores. He had a 10, and he came out screaming, and he was a good color and everything. So praise the Lord, it all worked out. And I'm thankful for my midwives who knew what they needed to do to help me get him out safely, and it just was such a beautiful moment. So after he was born, they moved me. I guess I forgot to mention that when they got me out of the tub, they had put me on a birthing stool, and that's what I had delivered him on, was the birth stool. And that was my first experience using that, which was quite interesting and very effective, obviously. So they moved me from the birth stool over to the couch, and we were able to do all of the newborn exams over on the couch and have the children come meet the baby.
Give me a kiss.
I love you.
Mom?
Hi, baby. You're a big brother now. You have a little... Watch out. Watch out.
Isn't he cute, John? Look at his eyes.
Do you love him?
I can't right now because his eyes. He's like,
All babies are pretty much born with really, really dark navy blue eyes, and then they change when they get a little older. Maybe.
So Elizabeth chose to cut the cord this time, and so she cut the cord, and that was really special. Both girls were very involved in this labor and delivery. They were in the room and present, and I kind of wavered on whether or not I thought that was appropriate, and if they were too young, and would that kind of traumatize them. And I did. At one point I was pushing, and I remember looking over and seeing the girl's eyes like wide as saucers. I think at that point his head was out, and I was getting ready to push his body out, and they were just huge eyes, mouths hanging open, just in awe, kind of. And so I remember I didn't quite know if it was a good awe or kind of like a scary awe. And so afterwards I asked them, was that scary to you? How do you feel about that? And their first thought was, I can't believe a woman's body can do that. And so I think what I thought might be traumatizing actually was very empowering to them, and they came out of the experience just kind of in wonder of what the female body can do, and kind of excited about the fact that they'll be able to bring children into the world, Lord willing, one day. And so that was good. I was glad. So, between watching it and cutting the cord and being involved in the whole newborn exam and being there when he was weighed and everything, I think they felt very included and bonded to Benjamin almost instantly. And so that's wonderful, and it kind of swells my mama heart. And then by 7:30 he was nursing. So it was a great, wonderful birth, very fast, probably 4 hours from the time my water broke until the time he was born. Probably only 3 hours or less of active labor where I actually had to work through it. And for being such a big boy and being posterior, it really wasn't a very difficult labor and delivery. Now the recovery has been much more difficult. I've had 7 children, and this last one is the only one where I've ever torn, and so that has been different in terms of recovery experience and what that's like. And just there was a lot more soreness, just I think because of how big he was and the situation in which he was delivered, and part of it could be my age too. I'm a little older, and so every time I have a baby, it's maybe a little harder on me to recover, but I'm doing well, and Adam and the kids are taking great care of us, and I'm getting lots of rest, and just enjoying this newborn baby moon. So.
Oh, he's just so cuddly. I could never let go when I have to. Oh, look at his big
Look at him
blue
looking
eyes.
at you.
Hello.
He's looking at you, sissy.
Well, I was looking at him for a while when you said that.
Hi, baby.
Say
hi, baby. You want to give him a kiss?
I don't think he liked it. He's like,
Are you excited, Levi?
Oh, say hi, brother. Hi, brother. Want to give him a kiss? Say hi, brother. So that's about it for his story. He came pretty fast and furious, and I'm just loving getting to know my newest little baby, and it's so fun to watch him become a part of our little clan and watch the children bond with him, and it's just such a precious time, these postpartum weeks. And so I thank everyone for all of your prayers and your well wishes, and so I look forward to sharing more about our postpartum experience and just how little Benjamin is being woven into the fabric of our family and our routines and everything like that. And so I hope you're having a blessed day, and look forward to talking to you again soon. So, bye.